this special stage, and it's going to be really dramatic, that is for certain, around here, because of course the cars have been on tarmac, yes, but public roads now. Very different sort of billiard table smooth surface for this rally stage. There, the cars starting to make their way into the queue behind. There is a running order in which they will be released, and so the first car to go is going to be the Estonian entry of Georg Linnamäe, James Morgan, his co-driver. You don't have to have driver and co-driver of the same nationality here, just the driver representing their nation. And after stage 6, the Les Bastides, the Estonians currently third in Rally 2. So that is the first car that we're going to see, and Mathieu Arzeno is going to be the last driver through. So the order thus far is France from Spain from Estonia, and as I say, we're looking forward to seeing what this stage throws up. David Addison and Ben Constanduros overlooking the circuit, overlooking the special stage. It's amazing how Paul Ricard can adapt itself so readily from being a racetrack about half an hour ago for GT cars to almost a motorsport theme park this weekend, with esports, with auto slalom, with karting slalom, and the team's good to go on a circuit that is going to be a very different type of stage, as I say, from that we have been used to earlier on. So out and about all day have been the teams, the drivers, their crews, and our cameras, and also Ben Constanduros, who has been with his bobble hat on and a Scotch egg, no doubt, like a proper rally fan. What's the French equivalent of a Scotch egg?
I don't know, but you definitely can't wear a bubble hat today. It's far too warm out there.
It looks like it's been a good day, certainly for France, because in Rally 2, Mathieu Arzeno has absolutely ruled the roost. I mean, I've been looking at stage times coming in while I've been based here, but you know, he has been hard to beat.
Yeah, and it's what you would expect, unfortunately, because he has the experience of the rally. This is a rally that is every year run in around December time, called the Soundbaum Rally, based effectively on 3 stages, but they managed to get 2 days worth of rallying out of those 3 stages, which means you do a lot of passes of those same stages. And we know from rallying that if you've got the stages in your head, much like if you're a circuit racer, that helps a huge amount with confidence and with knowing where you're going. And you could see in the way that the car is being thrown around out there on the stages that Mathieu is braking later than everybody else. He's got the car on its tiptoes. He can turn it easier because he's right on the edge of things. Whereas the likes of Georg Linnamäe from Estonia, who, you know, if you put them in a straight fight, you would say Georg has more experience. He's got ERC and WRC experience. He should be the faster guy, but lacking that experience, and also, from their point of view, a little bit of tarmac experience, because Estonia is obviously fast gravel rallies. A little bit of confusion as to when the stage is starting. Co-drivers conferring.
You have to check this and write this.
Yes, so we had a change of timetable on the circuit, but the rally stages didn't change their times. So the 6 stages stayed exactly the same, and then what we have in rallying is a thing called a regroup, where they all come together, and it's basically a way of resetting the clock to allow you to do something at a later date. Because there's so many, it's this whole system that these guys go through. So the first car should be at 7:30. And I think the commissionaire believes that the stage should be starting at 8 o'clock, which is what the original start time would have been.
Yes. I was going to ask the question, but never really got round to it. Has the rally moved as well? Because we've had circuit racing activity brought forward. But of course, rallying works, as you've been making the point, slightly differently. You have a control time that you have to clock in on. And you can be penalised for being early as much as late.
Yeah, exactly. The whole day is controlled by these time controls. You go through, you have a time card. We just saw that with all the co-drivers. That says when they need to go to each individual place, and the time must match. As you say, late or early, you get penalties for both. And so they have those time cards, and that's why the co-drivers can quite strongly go to the stage marshals and say, no, it says this on my card.
Yeah, I'm not checking in early because it's always the co-driver's fault if there's something like that. A different Jose Maria Lopez, the Spanish rally driver, waiting for his co-driver to come back with the news. But yes, the idea was that the stage would have started. Now, we had, just before you came into the booth, we'd seen the 0 car get ready to go.
Okay.
Now, granted, I've not seen it go, but it was there ready to go. And more co-drivers striding down to say, Whatver in a variety of languages.
And the zero car, just to explain, there's a multitude of cars that go through a stage before the first rally car goes through, the first competition car, let's say. You have safety delegates. The FIA safety delegate will go in half an hour before. Then we have a 000 vehicle, which will go 15 minutes before. That usually is a road car, and it's usually driven at road-going pace. The idea is to look at the spectator zones, make sure everybody's in the right place. 00 is then driven a bit more sprightly to almost try and set a time that then all of the marshals posts can work out when they're expecting the next cars.
Yeah.
And then 0 is usually a competition car that is not timed, and then finally 5 minutes after the zero car, you would then expect to see wherever you are spectating from said car.
Well, on track, there are, as you can see, the course vehicles, and that does not suggest that we are yet in a position to release cars because, of course, before you can open a rally stage, you've also got to close the circuit from the circuit racing activity. And it's not that long ago that we had a GT race finish. So, yes, it's all very well bringing a timetable forward, but, yes, you need to accommodate the rules of rallying. But I think we are getting to that point now where the zero car is going to be allowed to go. What about dramas on the stages? Has anybody been in strife today? Anybody picked up damage, or has it all been quite plain sailing?
Unfortunately, stage 1, we lost Mexico in Rally 4. Right the first stage, I think 3 or 4 kilometers in, they crashed out. And then from what I saw, the second stage, Germany had a puncture. So they lost a minute in the Rally 2 category. And we did have a mechanical failure for Brazil as well.
And there, the rally officials.
I do a look to confirm, and it's okay. It's in 5 minutes we send the zero car.
Nicholas Klinger, the FIA rally delegate for this event, just explaining to everybody how it's working.
I think he said it's okay, and in 5 minutes we send the zero car.
Which means we've got to be 10 minutes before we send the first car.
Yeah, indeed. Right, so Mexico crashed out. Let me just go back to that, because does that mean that they are out of the event, or can they come back on day 2?
I haven't seen the car, but if the car is okay to be fixed, they can come back under supplementary regulations.
Okay.
They get penalised 10 minutes for every stage they've missed.
But they can at least make the journey worthwhile.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
They're unlikely to get into the top 3. As I explained to Lou just a little bit earlier, that's a whole different story for tomorrow evening, that we're going to see something very, very new. They do have experience of this stage, though, in the light, thankfully, because this was what they used as their qualifying stage. We don't have qualifying in the World Championship, but in European Championships and any championship that chooses to, they have a qualifying stage which then that does not set the running order for the next day, because running order in rallying, very important.
Yes.
How is the stage in tarmac when you've got people cutting off the track? They bring gravel onto the surface. So the earlier you are on the running order, the better, the cleaner the road. Yeah. But in gravel, it's the other way around, because you're sweeping the gravel off to find the grip and the bedrock underneath. So we do a qualifying stage. The one who wins the qualifying stage gets to pick his starting position.
Right.
So Georg was fastest in qualifying. He chose to be first on the road. Everybody else chose sequentially? No, that's not the right word. Second chose second, third chose third, fourth chose fourth. There's a word for that. But I don't know why. Mathieu from France decided to choose not last, but he was the 11th on the road or something. So he decided that he wasn't going to be penalised that much by 11 cars in front of him cutting, and so chose to be a bit further back.
So the rules of rallying applied, but this is a very different kind of special stage, as we say. There's the safety car, the FIA safety vehicle, which will do a lap, just to make sure that the chicanes are in the right place. And you can tell it's proper rallying, this, because it's all done by candlelight, isn't it? You know, the officials, just like you see on other events, sitting in the darkness. But the course car, as it is, effectively, the FIA safety car will do a run through the stage. So this is good news, because this does edge us closer to the stage itself.
And it'll give us an idea as to how the stage works, because as I said earlier, it doesn't absolutely 100% follow where we would expect the circuit to go. For instance, the first corner is a right-hander rather than the left-hander that the GT cars have.
But then you do rejoin the circuit for a bit, but you don't go all the way down to the Virage du Camp or the chicane from memory. There is a sort of cut-through that's been used. And this is one of the beauties of Paul Ricard. There are so many different configurations of the circuit. You can do all sorts of things with it. So out of Verrières, and then you turn sharp right, and this loops you round to the Mistral straight. But then the Mistral chicane has got so many different configurations. You can do quite a lot of mileage within that as well, can't you?
Yes, you go back on yourself about 3 times, don't you?
Yes, as you will see in a moment. So this is a useful exercise, actually, watching the safety delegate go through the stage, because up now towards the approach to the chicane, but there's another chicane on the opposite side, first of all. So you can go this way and under the bridge, well, sort of behind the bridge, but hairpin your way round, and then back to the Mistral. Now, I've touched briefly, Ben, on as we're watching this stage, Rally 2. We've also got Rally 4, and we've got Historic. Now, Rally 4, less powerful cars, less modified, but still very competitive, and the Historics is just a chance to wallow in the history.
Yes, Rally 4 is what we run the junior WRC configurations to. Front-wheel drive, usually 150 brake horsepower-ish.
Yeah.
Actually, very tricky things to drive, because obviously only the front wheels doing the steering and doing the accelerating. Fine on a race circuit where you want to be smooth, but in a rally, you really want to throw it around. So some funny techniques that they use to get those cars to pedal around a circuit at their most potential. We won't really see that on this because it is a racetrack, so they'll be nice. They probably, or should be, nice and smooth. And then, as you say, Category 2, historic cars, an opportunity to acknowledge the massive support that the FIA have in historic racing generally. You know, we don't have any other historic categories, for instance, on circuit or anything like that. But there are so many historic categories within FIA that it's great that the rally cars have been able to go out there and sing the Quattro and the Porsche, particularly Opel Kadett. Darren said that's his favourite. Then they're not necessarily driven at their potential. Some of them are quite valuable, but they are driven pretty well.
So we've got a chance then to have another look at the remainder of the stage. This comes out of Senior, but then don't go all the way down to Le Beausset. There's another cut through. I have to say, I'm learning all the different elements of Paul Ricard here. So many different elements to the nature of the circuit, which lends itself to an event like this. Then you're back on the power towards the virage de la Tour, up towards the virage du Pont. And the zero car will be next. At what intervals are the cars released? Are we on a minute, 30 seconds?
In the stages out in the forest, we were at 2-minute gaps.
Okay.
But we will be at 1-minute gaps for tonight. And really, that just allows enough space for the different cars that are out there and the different levels of performance that they're able to do. So it also gives you a bit more breathing room that if you do have an issue on stage, you don't have 5 cars in the stage to remove, you've only got 1 or 2. So Nicholas has finished his stage in the FIA safety vehicle. And it looks as though we've got the zero car on the start line. So the zero car, as you can see, is a competition vehicle. This is not a car which is participating within the rally, but it is a car which sets a reference time for when you're out in the forest. It's all the marshals, because you will go past multiple marshal points out in the forest. Yep. The marshals will then use that to reference if a car goes missing, and they're expecting a car at 2-minute intervals, and someone goes missing, they can then report back and say there is a car missing between marshal point 3 and 4, and that's before television, that was the only way to know if somebody had enough or not.
And of course, this is always, if you're a spectator by the side of a special stage, a huge moment, because you know that you're getting ever closer to the first competition car come through. And if you think to a World Championship round, for example, at this point you've got the whistles blowing for the marshals, you've got the fans getting ever more eager, because certainly if it's a good World Championship round, they'll have been there for hours and hours and hours waiting for cars to come through. So this finally gets you ever closer to the first competition car through. It also illustrates, does it not, just how much quicker than a bog standard road car a rally car is, which of course have to be road legal themselves.
Yes, because they have to drive between the stages on public roads. That's one lovely thing about rallying, is seeing a WRC or an ERC vehicle that's a bit wide, in the city centre, or when we go to the lights of Sardinia, they start in the medieval heart of Sardinia, and they're able to drive out. Yes, we are able to take GT3 cars into the centre of Spa, but we have to close the roads, and these things pull up beside you when you're queuing for fuel.
Yep,
They're fantastic.
Yeah. I can remember driving back from stages on Rally GB in days of yore with, you know, some of the other cars hammering past you, and of course they've got to obey by the speed limits and traffic regulations. You know, you can't jump a red light because you had a puncture on stage 4 and you're trying to make up time. You've got to adhere to the rules of the road. Anyway, you don't have that problem around the circuit, that's for sure. But
very easy to get done speeding around the perimeter roads of the circuit, though.
Very true.
The speed limit is quite low, which of course has to go into the regulations of the time between the stages, and that then sets the rhythm for the rally, because you can only do a lot of the road around here 50 kilometres an hour. And there are police out, and they are watching, and there is, well, it's a couple of speed cameras, but most of them are broken.
Now, yes, and in time-honoured fashion, of course, the teams were given a chance to recce the route, not in the competition cars, but, for example, on Wednesday, when I was around the roads here running, quite a few teams, you could tell, were off on their recce. They have the reference numbers on the cars, and they'll go for a look at the stages. Right, it's time to go. The clock ticks down, and the first car away, as we've been saying, is for Team Estonia. George Linneman, James Morgan sitting alongside him. So we've got the clock running. This will give us now a chance to have a look at exactly what a stage time around here is like. This is Rally 2. These are the quickest cars, Ben.
Yes, and this is a stage which is still used in that local rally, but certainly will not hand the advantage over to the French like we've seen out in the forests today. Georg was the fastest man on this stage in qualifying, a little bit ragged there, but you know, it's not as though he's got no experience around here. They've recce'd it. He's got a co-driver, James Morgan, sitting alongside, giving him the notes, telling him where he needs to be. It won't be quite as rapid fire as he would be out in the forest and through the coals, but he's still giving him enough of an idea of where he needs to go, especially when he comes to this slightly confusing section with the chicanes.
You're right, they have recce'd it, but they recce'd it in the daylight.
Yes.
They drove it as a qualifying stage in the daylight. Now, as you can see, it is very dark indeed. Next to go then is the Turkish entry of Orhan Avcıoğlu, and the Turkish driver blasts away. Regular in Turkish events, began with a Peugeot 306. He's had a Fiat Palio, a Fiesta Mark 5 ST. He's been a European Championship, a WRC2 and Baltic Trophy regular. So for Turkey, Orhan Avcıoğlu is on stage now, and slightly slower in the first sector, the first timing point, first intermediate on the stage, than was Georg Linneman.
Not a surface at all that Turkey are used to. The tarmac surfaces that they do have, much dustier than you have here, especially, you know, they were talking about how grippy the surface was out on the stages. They're now on the racetrack, super smooth. I think there have been a lot of tweaking going on. They had a service, did they not, between the last stage and this?
Yeah.
So they could have actually stiffened the car up a little bit, because they do want to run it quite soft out on the stages, because it's quite bumpy. But here, obviously, not a bump in sight.
Yeah, Turkey 5th coming into this stage. The classification after SS6 puts them 5th, and Spain is next to go. Now, the Spanish team currently 2nd. So, at the moment, Jose Maria Lopez is something like the best part of 40 seconds behind the rally leader, Mathieu Azeno, for France. But let's see whether that can be shaved over the course of this. As you look at Linneman heading up towards the end of the stage then, this will give us a target time as he heads up towards the flying finish.
Beautiful last corner there. Really had the car just drifting a little bit. 2:36 is a little slower than he managed in qualifying, I think. But of course, you have to take into consideration that it is dark now, and it was light.
My brain can't cope with a rally stage and the word qualified being used.
Yes, I know.
Progress, is it? Must be modern. So, 2 minutes 36.750 for Estonia. We've got Turkey, we've got Spain, and we've also got Argentina on stage as well. Paulo Soria for Argentina is out there as well. This for Spain, getting perilously close to barriers, it felt there, is Jose Maria Lopez. The car pendulums its ways. He threads it through that chicane, but all the time trying to keep up the momentum, aren't you?
This is a brand new Hyundai, only being released for customers less than a year ago. And it really is a step up from what they had before. Using the handbrake there just to rotate the car quite a lot. He's up against the might of Skoda, and Skoda in WRCT are the car to beat. It's a solid car, it hardly ever breaks, and it does seem so comfortable to drive, whereas the Hyundai, possibly faster as a car, but very much on the edge, and it's looking good.
It is. Turkey has gone quickest. Now, the times that we're giving you are the unofficial times. The rally has its own timekeeping service. The track activity has a different timekeeping service. We're looking at their times, which are very, very close anyway. But 2 minutes 36.542 is the Turkish time that puts Orhan Acıoglu top. But I reckon that Jose Maria Lopez is going to go even faster. The Spanish car looking very, very good indeed, as he has been quickest so far in Intermediate 1 and Intermediate 2.
Borja Rosida alongside him, co-driver for Carlos Sainz, for Danny Sordo for a couple of rallies, and actually stood on the podium with Danny in Portugal 2 years ago. But Borja has actually been mentoring Pepe for a long, long time, and so he's going to come to the line now.
This could be in the 235s, couldn't it? It is 235.421 then. Provisionally puts Jose Maria Lopez fastest for Spain. So Jose Maria Lopez Planes, regular in Spanish national events, goes quickest and does so by over a second.
Lindemann is going to be disappointed with that, to be third of the 3 cars that we've seen finish so far, because slower than Turkey as well, considering he was the fastest man in qualifying. That's a little bit disappointing.
Indeed so. Right, we now have blasting away the car from Team Belgium, Cedric de Checo, but there is Argentina. This is Paulo Soria, who is making his way up towards the end of the stage. He's been busy in the Italian series this year, as well as in the ERC4 and the Clio Trophy by TopSport Championship, so doing a lot of mileage.
But in front-wheel drive cars, the Clio Trophy and ERC4, both the same car, front-wheel drive Clio R4 that we'll see a little bit later on. Only second time in a 4-wheel drive machine, and that is a totally different way of driving a vehicle, so doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah, he's gone second, and admittedly was a second down on Lopez, but even so, as you make the point, belying his lack of experience in 4-wheel drive technology. That's a pretty good effort. Right, where do we go next? Because I think after Soria, there was De Checo for Belgium.
Yeah, so that's the Belgian entry. And we've also got Hungary out there as well.
Yes, indeed.
And Martin Lazio has been quite spectacular out on the stage. He's quite an aggressive driver. Checo telling me earlier on this today, the guys are quite fast, aren't they? That was his summary of stage 2. So really looking around him and thinking, gosh, I'm not quite sure I can keep up with that kind of a pace.
He's an experienced competitor. It dates back to 2006, regular in Belgian events and WRC3. There is Martin László then for Hungary. And he has been a regular on Hungarian national events for many, many seasons. Remember, the time to beat on this stage, 2 minutes 35. The real fascination for me is when we see Matteo Arzeno, because as the rally leader, unbeaten all day, pressure's on.
Yeah, but the advantage maybe not necessarily there for this one. Plus, he has a 42-second advantage coming into this stage. Remember, this is just a time that's added on to the times from the rest of the day. Yeah. And he's got that huge advantage. So no necessarily need to take a risk, but how much risk are you actually taking out there? If you do make a mistake, you're only going to lose time and maybe, at worst, clunk a concrete barrier.
Right, this is Martin László for Hungary, coming then through the next of the chicanes. This, you could argue, is the ultimate single-venue rally stage, isn't it? Beats going round Croft or Three Sisters in the UK, for example. You can do this on a modern-day Grand Prix circuit in excellent weather. But, of course, in the UK, there is this Circuit Rally Championship, the Motorsport News backs, that takes rally cars onto race tracks and builds special stages within. For Germany, then, Björn Sartorius, who's been a regular this year in the Central Rally Trophy in Germany. He's had a couple of wins, in fact, in German national events this season. But you were saying he was in strife at the start of the day.
Yeah, picked up a puncture on the right front corner on stage 2, quite early into the stage, 11-kilometre col, and had to descend the stage with only 3 wheels. You're allowed to do that. You don't have to stop. And actually, it was better for him not to stop, because you change a tyre. It's about a minute and a half. He only lost a minute, but a little bit frustrated by that. Apparently just cut too much.
Nikos Pavlidis Pavlidis for Greece is next away. He has been a regular over the years on Greek events, but also occasional WRC events, Monte Carlo, Rally Monza, for example. But you can trace his career right back to the late 1980s when he started in a Ford Escort Mark II, which makes him a proper rally chap, doesn't it, if you're an Escort Mark II driver?
An interesting choice of WRC events as well, with the Monza rally being something that is more akin to this. They used a Monza circuit and make lots of different variants of stages out of the Monza circuit. So he has done he's done a pretty good job here. It does not look particularly comfortable the way that he's having to drive the car, taking a couple of stabs at the corner that I was sitting at earlier on today. So maybe getting more and more experience of these particular, very unique style of road.
You can sort of equate this in a way to Rally Monza, I guess, because it's on a race circuit. This is Oliver Mellers for United Kingdom, who accelerates away. He comes from good rallying stock. His dad, Chris Mellers, has been a mainstay of the national rally scene for a long, long time. And 27-year-old Oliver Mellers, who actually has been regular in French events this year. He has been competing in the UK, won the Riponian stages, but actually he knows some of the French roads pretty well.
Yeah, and interestingly, a nationally homologated Iris here, rather than the internationally homologated cars that we've seen before. So this is something kind of specific to him. There's not many of these about, and therefore he knows it very well. However, he did have power steering failure in the first loop, so didn't have a particularly fun morning trying to hustle that thing, even though it's nice and small. And obviously, the higher speed you go, the easier it is to steer. But ultimately, put pay to the pace that perhaps he could have shown us.
But this is the man who has dominated the day, from what you've been telling us. Mathieu Arzeno for France, knows the car, knows the roads, and he has been unbeaten. He blasts away then, and the time he's got to beat is that of Jose Maria Lopez. It's still 2 minutes 35.4. We've got Spain ahead of Argentina, ahead of Turkey, Estonia 4th, Belgium 5th, Germany 6th, Hungary 7th, Sweden 8th. We're waiting for a time from the UK, Greece and France to round out Rally 2.
Yeah, I wonder whether Laszlo had a mistake on his... it looks like in the middle sector he lost a couple of seconds, whereas he didn't lose much in the other two. So I think a mistake from the Hungarian driver to lose those couple of seconds. Ultimately, globally, it doesn't matter too much. That's a little mistake as well from France, a little bit wide.
And also, it wasn't an absolute best within the first intermediate. It was only, of course, a personal best, because you only get to go through it once, but it wasn't purple, which would have meant he was quicker than anybody in the first split. But of course, he's got a lot of the stage to make up that time.
And ultimately, he'll be looking at the overall picture as well, rather than the stage wins.
Yeah, but there's bragging rights.
There is.
I won every stage today, guys. Come on. I'm ready for day 2. So, Mathieu Arzeno, as we've been saying, experienced French competitor. He's competed in the junior WRC as well. Oliver Mellers is hustling on as well. Now, where are we anticipating him? He's got to do a low 2:36 to go second, hasn't he?
Another interesting fact from our French competitor is that he is a single-seater champion in France.
Okay.
So he has good tarmac breeding from being out here and doing this kind of a stage. Doesn't look massively comfortable, I have to say, by the looks of the way the car is moving around underneath him. It could well be just too soft for this particular stage. And remember, if he's in the top 3, tomorrow evening, the top 3 will face off each other and go on this track at the same time, and that will decide our medals. So if he hasn't got a car that works here, then he might not be able to win the rally,
no, exactly.
even though he wins all the stages and has a minute advantage coming into that last medal stage.
We're into Rally 4. We've already got a man that's taken a number of stage wins today, namely for Italy, Roberto Dapra, on stage, and now we've got Ali Turkan as well, but we want to see Mathieu Arzeno here. We also want to see a time out of Oliver Mellers, and Oliver Mellers only did a 2 minutes 43, so he's 9th for UK, and Nikos Pavlidis for Greece only 10th. So Arzeno, can we get him into the 2:35s? I'm not convinced. 2:36s probably. He comes up towards the flying finish. So far, it is Spain looking as though it's going to be a stage win, and it is. For the first time all day, Arzeno is beaten 0.8 of a second slower than Jose Maria Lopez. Finally, a different stage winner in Rally 2.
Doesn't make much change to the overall, though. The gap is still over 40 seconds for Arzeno over the rest. There's a good battle, actually, for second between Spain, Argentina, Turkey and Estonia. They're all in there. I think even Hungary might be in there as well. But now we turn our attention to a battle that's even stronger and could change, which will change the running order for tomorrow. Italy versus Spain, and I think the gap coming into this is 0.4 of a second.
It is indeed. It is Spain ahead of Italy. They've been trading the top times over the course of the day. That is Italy. That is Roberto Dapra with the Peugeot 208 Rally 4. But yes, this is a much more competitive class than Rally 2 has been. So Dapra for Italy. It is Spain ahead, thanks to Oscar Palomo Ortiz. Turkey third, but that's about half a minute back. So it's very much a two-nation battle between Spain and Italy. Very different engine note that we have from the Rally 4 contingent, and Dapra is going to set the target time for Italy here. So 2 minutes 47 is your Rally 4 target time. Roberto Dapra has had 4 stage wins to the 2 of Oscar Palomo Ortiz.
Yeah, but the gaps, those 4 stage wins, the gaps are smaller than the big. It was Ortiz winning the first stage of the loop, which is the really, really narrow and bumpy one. Very high abrasion tarmac on that one as well. He was the one that took 5 or 6 seconds per loop of stages on that first one, but didn't win any other of the stages. And that was enough to give him that 0.4 of a second advantage coming into this. Dapra has now got the benchmark time, and now we need to see where anybody else can match. Ali Turkan for Turkey has been very, very impressive. And here we have Tom Renaissance, who has been struggling, actually. He hasn't been quite as comfortable in this car as he'd like. It looks still soft. He said it was soft earlier, and it still looks like it's a bit wallowy. Yeah,
Tom Renaissance in one of the Clios, he's second in the Belgian Junior Championship this year, 4 times a winner. So, you know, his CV would suggest he should be up there. But again, learning the circuits, learning the stages, learning the roads, and we've been making this point in some of the race activity. It's a bit the same, Ben, in rally terms. The nature of this event means you're going up against people that you wouldn't ordinarily compete against. So actually, it's a really interesting level. You can start to see how good people are against others that you don't normally see.
And of course, they'll never compare themselves to that person until they've looked at the time after the stage. And there was a time in WRC where you had the split times on your dashboard and you knew exactly how good or bad you were doing. That's all gone now, and obviously in the lower categories that never existed. So these guys have to just run their own they have to just run their own pace, basically, and you drive to how you feel.
Yeah. So Roberto Dapra was, just to give you an idea, about 1.9 seconds slower in the first sector than a Rally 2 car was.
But Spain have just gone faster.
Indeed.
By quite a chunk, actually. It looks like 2 seconds a difference, second and a bit.
So Spain over Italy, it's...
So
I was going to say 7/10 of a second. 2:47.0.
Oh, yeah.
2:47.7. So 7/10 between Italy, but Spain ahead. Yes, this is Tom Renaissance, as we've been saying, for Belgium.
So that means the gap is out to 1 second for the lead of our Rally 4. Very, very large 1 second.
But Renaissance is pressing on regardless. Ali Turkan, 2 minutes 51 for Turkey. So that car came into the stage third and in danger of losing that third place. Ali Turkan was half a minute back, but he's losing further time, and that's going to enable potentially Ricardo Sousa for Portugal to get closer. Let's just see where Renaissance goes within Rally 4. He will cross the line at 2 minutes 48, and that puts him third. So he jumps ahead of Turkey on that stage by the best part of 3 seconds, as now the Netherlands gets ready to go.
Yeah, so something's happening in this middle sector that's a little bit of a struggle. We saw Laszlo from Hungary having an issue in the middle sector, and Turkan lost a similar amount of like 2 or 3 seconds. So somewhere in there is a bit of a struggle for them. Martin van Hoek has been all day one of our last cars out for Rally 4.
And is 7th of the 8 in the standings at the moment. India is last, incidentally, but Martin van Hoek then sets off. Another hugely experienced driver, go back to, well, at least a decade, and he was in club events in a Peugeot 205. This is Ricardo Sousa in the very spectacularly coloured Portuguese entry. Now, Sousa came into the stage 4th and needed to make up 18 seconds, give or take, against Ali Turkan. He's not going to beat him by 18 seconds, but if he goes quicker, we'll narrow that margin. This is important.
Nibble, 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 every single stage.
Yeah.
Sousa with a...
Oh, go slower. after all that. Missed out by 7/10 of a second, so he was actually slower than Turkan, so the gap, forget what I was saying, stretches out.
He also lost his drive shaft in practice.
Ah.
Great time to have it done. One practice lap, drive shaft went, new drive shaft in for qualifying, and so far, Sousa hasn't really been where you would expect to see him, but he's much more of a gravel driver than a tarmac driver.
There you have for Greece, Panchalis Chatzimakos, who is another Greek championship regular, but he has done WRC events in Greece. In fact, he won Rally 4 in the WRC Greece event this year, so he knows this sort of car. Now, okay, World Rally Championship Greece, Circuit de Castellet, very different proposition. However, he knows how to get the most out of one of these relatively underpowered cars, I suppose is my point.
The biggest difference really, yes, okay, gravel to tarmac, but the feeling that tarmac gives you, the way that you lean on the car, the way that you rely upon that grip level rather than drifting and sliding around, it's a very different feel. Right, historics. This is what we've really all been waiting for.
Oh, it takes you back, doesn't it, to the early 1980s when Audi came and rewrote the rule book, really, of rallying. We went from Group 4 towards Group B, but it was the Quattro that was the first four-wheel drive car, and the sport's never looked back. We've got to get Martin van Hoek, first of all, back to the end of the stage. So we've got Martin van Hoek, and we've also got Sanjay Takala, the Indian driver, to go. So there is Martin van Hoek, making his way towards the end of the stage. Rallying, it's worth just making the point, new to the FIA Motorsport Games. It's been a long time between editions, of course, because of the pandemic, but rallying introduced this year, and actually, although you could argue that a dozen per category isn't a vast number, put them together and it's a good enough number for a rally in its own.
There's less than a dozen in WRC.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
10 or 11 cars in most WRC events from the top class.
Yeah, sure.
35 in the Rally 2 category these days. It's definitely, they're streamlining over the last couple of years of the FIA has really helped the numbers build in that category. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of R5s out there, R5 being the same name as Rally 2, which is slightly confusing, but they used to be called R5s, they're now called Rally 2 machines.
Right. Now, we're going to get the historics, of course, underway. You've seen Andrea Zinian, or Zippo, as it likes to be called. First of all, we need to get Sanjay Takala across the line, the 54-year-old Indian. He is a regular in Indian and Malaysian events and the Asia-Pacific Rally Championship. But again, great to have people making the effort to come all this way. Now, this is the Quattro. I think this is perhaps the star car of the evening, isn't it? Andrea Zinian, who's been a regular in modern as well as historic events, whether it's been in his Audi or his Lancia Delta Integrale or his Peugeot 205. He's got quite a nice collection of them, but yeah, you can either watch the car or reminisce, because like I was saying, Audi absolutely changed the nature of World Championship rallying with that oh so distinctive engine note.
Wastegate opening is the big thing, isn't it? Just brilliant.
It took a long time, really, for Audi to get the cars to be reliable. They were quick, and of course they had the traction, but the reliability wasn't always there. But once they got that sorted out, championships, of course, came with alacrity. Antonio Sainz for Spain is the next one away in the Porsche 911 SC, the 64-year-old Spaniard. He's got a 911, as you can see. Oh, and the door open, so the air conditioning is there. He needs to try and close that. He's got a 912 as well as a BMW 2002 TII. He's got all sorts of cars for Spanish historic events. Andrea Zinian, Zippo, is hustling on. He will set the target time, and just like Matteo Arzeno had not been beaten all day, well, Zinian hasn't been beaten all day either. This could possibly change things, but I think the car's got the grunt, and actually it's one of the more modern within the class.
The Opel Kadett that we haven't seen yet has actually got within half a second of Zippo.
Okay.
But ultimately, as soon as you saw the entry list, the Audi Quattro has the grunt advantage.
Yeah. So he likes to be running under the pseudonym of Zippo, Andrea Zinian. He goes over the line. 251.946 then is the target time within the historic class. And Antonio Sainz has got the door closed in the Spain Porsche 911 SC.
You might recognise the name Sainz.
Rings a bell.
Yeah, this is his brother, which is remarkable. He's got a Red Bull helmet with Sainz on it. And I thought, wow, that's unusual. You can't get yourself a Red Bull helmet very easily. And especially one that says Sainz on it. But then, of course, he is Sainz. And then didn't take long to find out he's the brother and has been rallying historic cars as long as Carlos Sainz has been rallying in the World Championship. So a rallying family.
And probably has been his brother for a long time as well.
Yes, I imagine so.
Now, this Opel Kadett, the Czech entry of Wojtek Staff, that's been, as you were saying, a really rapid car all day. And, OK, it's a bit breathless around here, but has been well driven.
Yeah, absolutely. The stages are actually quite fast out there. So this car really could do with a more sinuous route. But it's been driven really, really well. And if it had the same performance as Zippo, we could have had a really nice little fight at the front of the field.
Now for Germany.
This has confused me, David, today. Twice.
What, Siegfried Mayer's Volvo?
It's well, it's silver and it's got German flag on it because it's from Team Germany. So in my brain, it had to be a Mercedes, and it kind of looks quite
That's what you mean. Yes, it's a silver arrow.
It was,
sort of. Yes.
If it's going to be silver, but yeah, it's quite a big car to be rattling around the stage.
Siegfried Mayer has a passion for Volvos because he has this 244 GL. He's got a 740, a 744 that he's rallied as well. So clearly likes his Volvos. And Antonio Sainz, then, brother of, uncle of, comes up towards the end of the stage, and he's going to try and beat a 251, and he's nowhere near that, is he? He's a long way off.
Yeah, it's been a bit like that all day, I'm afraid.
It's a great noise, though.
Oh, yes. And you imagine in the coals, the second stage of our loop, you can hear it for miles before you can see it.
Well, Wojtek Staff in the Opel has gone second. Antonio Sainz goes third, but he is something like 14 seconds down on Zippo. And just to make the point, we've got 8 cars within the historic competition. And after stage 6, Zippo, the Quattro driver, leading from Wojtek Staff, the margin nearly a minute, just under 55 seconds between the two. Antonio Sainz third, Siegfried Mayer you're looking at for Germany fourth. And the Volvo ahead of this car for the United Kingdom, the Talbot Sunbeam of Tim Jones, which sort of takes you back to Henry Toivonen and Guy Freckelin winning as Henry Toivonen did the RAC Rally. But another car, the Talbot Sunbeam Lotus, that makes a good noise. Has a distinctive bark and hustles its way up towards the next chicane. But I would say that might have a problem because Tim Jones is being relatively cautious in that car. Up towards the timing line. So goes through the flying finish. Tim Jones goes by, and that's, again, a small engine car, a 3:15.8. That puts him the slowest thus far. We've not actually got a time out of Germany yet, which is surprising. I thought Siegfried Mayer had already been through, but he's not come by yet.
So just a couple more cars to get through. There is Germany. I think he started behind. As I say, quite a big machine. Look at the roll on it. To wind through some of the smaller parts of the roads. As I said, the stages, all three of them have very different characteristics. The third of the stages, nice and wide, nice and flowing, very fast. The col up and down over the col de l'Espluguet. And then the first stage, very, very narrow in the second half, and it's kind of annoyingly bumpy in parts as well. So a really nice mix of tarmac stages, and actually looking around the area, there's plenty of opportunity potentially for a gravel rally as well. There isn't one that exists right now, but there's plenty of gravel stages in through the National Park Soundbaum, which is where we are actually. We're in the National Park here, and why so many people are cycling around as well. 2 larders to finish off our historic tour from Slovakia and Estonia.
And of course, France is one of those countries that has a tarmac and a gravel championship. So certain drivers prefer one discipline from the other, don't they? Whereas, for example, the British Championship, the Premier British category, has a mixture. But then, again, at club level, there are tarmac or gravel championships. Yeah, the larders are going to be the last 2 through. But when we have the cars back on track tomorrow, it will be for the medal stage, the so-called golden stage. And that's when they have the shootout for the medals at the end of their competition. So it's a conventional rally in terms of cumulative times until you get to the last stage.
Yeah, exactly, which is a nice little twist. And there is an even more complex part to that, where they have to take 3 different routes around the 3 laps that we will see on that medal stage. So a bit like Rallycross, where you've got a joker lap, you actually have 2 joker laps, and they will each be allocated a different lap per lap that they're doing, and they do 3 in total. So that will be nice and confusing for you and I, trying to work out where everybody's going. That's the 37 Lada over the line. Slovakia, I think Slovakia and Estonia are having a magnificent battle for last. The gap between them is absolutely nothing.
Technically, it's the battle to be penultimate, isn't it?
Yes, true. If you're aiming to be better. No, it's now gone out to a minute and a half, so it was very, very close before. I think actually the Slovakia car had an issue coming back to service in the middle part of the day,
okay.
So that's where it lost all its time.
But the Ladas, I mean, I know over the years they've been a bit like the early Skodas, were a sort of tongue-in-cheek rally car because they weren't the quickest and they weren't the most fashionable of brands, but they were rugged and they were reliable and they were easy to buy and to maintain. And you know, in given countries, lots of people have gone rallying in those cars. Go back to the early days of Skoda, before it became part of the Volkswagen Audi group, you know, the so-called surprising Skoda tag. Every year John Haugland won his class on the RAC rally. It wasn't a surprise at all, because they were rugged, durable cars.
Yeah, and of course, coming out of Russia, that whole Eastern Bloc is full of them, and full of them in their national rally championships. Rallying is so huge across the world. Yeah. Every little small national event is still full of fans, and especially in the likes of Hungary and Estonia, incredible support for just, you know, your local rally.
Yeah, and you forget, actually, just how much of it there is, whether it's...
you just need to go on one of those fail videos on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely, and there are so many events.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, actually, you mentioned the word fail. Nobody's got a drama, really, through that stage at all. Nobody had a spin particularly. Nobody made any mistakes that we saw. So it's been a solid end to day one of the rally element of the FIA Motorsport Games, another of the new disciplines brought in this year.
They will be going back out into the mountains tomorrow. They've got 2 stages which will run 3 times. It's actually a longer day in terms of competitive miles than they did today. It's about 55% of the rally done tomorrow, and then we will get that medal stage where we will bring the top 3 of each category, and they will rate each other across 3 laps around here. And that will then decide who gets the gold, the silver and the bronze medals, and we don't then really reference any of the 2 days worth of stages in the mountains they've done.
So let's just have a quick look at the times on that stage. This is the stage order, not the rally order. So if you take the times merged together, with obviously Rally 2 at the top, it is Spain ahead of France, ahead of Argentina, Turkey 4th, Estonia 5th, and Belgium 6th. That means that Jose Maria Lopez with Borja Rosada sitting alongside for the first time all day was quicker than Mathieu Arzeno, Paulo Soria 3rd fastest. In Rally 4, Oscar Palomo is fastest for Spain, ahead of Italy's Roberto Dapra, and 3rd in Rally 4 was Tom Rensenet for Belgium. And if you go a little bit further down the overall order, 17th on that stage was the leading historic. That was the Audi Quattro of Andre Zinian of Zippo. And that car dominating all day within the historic tournament, because Zippo for Italy was fastest on every stage. He's the only driver that has been able to claim that honour now, and he was ahead of Wojtek Staff and then Antonio Sainz in the historic competition, with the slowest driver being Estonian Marko Matic with his Lada, and he was just over 4 minutes at the end of the stage, this 7th of the event.
So one change from the previous stage that puts Turkey ahead of Hungary, up to 4th position for Orhan with Martin Laszlo. We saw that we saw that he had made a mistake in the middle part of the lap. He drops down to 5th, 1 minute 12 seconds off Mathieu Arzeno. So, an opportunity to get themselves onto this Paul Ricard circuit after a day in the coals and the forests around this area, onto the slick tarmac of Paul Ricard to throw their R5s and Rally 4 cars around. And France looking a little bit ragged and therefore not being able to win the 7th stage of the day for Martin Arzeno. Instead, Pepe, there was a little spin from Greece. Just about holding on to that car. The door opened for Antonio Sainz, but it was the Audi Quattro of Zippo. Once again fastest, 7 stages, 7 fastest times in historic, and it looking good for Italy, looking good for Spain as well. He's going to really put down some good times tomorrow. Rallying continues here at the Motorsport Games.
How awesome was it to see those rally cars in the night here at the circuit, Darren? To hear them going on behind us, it's quite special.
Oh, really special. It was so nice that they're right behind us.
Yeah.
It really is the best studio ever to be in. And being able to watch the cars around this circuit in the evening, under the lights, etc. In the certain areas, there's some lighting that they can use, and other parts of the course they're using is very dark. But yeah, great to see that France didn't have it all their own way today. Obviously been very dominant out there, and then with Spain taking the stage win this evening is fantastic to see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how that all plays out. But the FIA Motorsport Games is well and truly underway now. We've had so much going on today, but let's take a look at what we've got for you tomorrow. We're on air from 9:45 and we've got plenty for you to see. We've got the karting endurance qualifying, the KCMG F4 qualifying race. That's going to be a good one. There's some good names in there for the F4 drivers. Then it's the GT Cup qualifying race 2 now. I can't wait to see that.
Today was good. I can imagine tomorrow it's going to get a little bit more heated out there. And they've got to keep the cars in good sort of condition for the final race, the big race. But you can see already no one's leaving anything on the table at the moment, so that's going to be a great race to watch tomorrow afternoon. And
one we haven't seen yet is the drifting. The drifting finals are happening tomorrow.
I know. I'm going to go and have a little look over there tomorrow in the morning, see how the practicing's going, but I don't actually understand all the rules, so I want someone to go through and explain how they get their points and how it all works out. But I'm really excited about seeing the drifting tomorrow afternoon. 32 cars going in through to the final, so that should be good fun.
That will be. We've got the cross car junior and senior semis and finals. The Fanatec esports finals are coming your way. That is such a popular discipline this year.
Yeah, it's got the most drivers in the category out of all the disciplines this year, so I think it's 58
nations
drivers
competing.
So that's going to be a very tight competition, I can imagine. And obviously that's towards the end of tomorrow, so there's plenty of practicing and qualifying before there for those guys, but it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
We saw Tom Coronel earlier, didn't we, when we went for lunch, and their touring car have got their qualifying tomorrow as well.
Tom was looking as relaxed as ever when we saw him. He knows what to do out on the track, and I'm sure he's going to be able to put in a great performance tomorrow afternoon in the qualifying session. And
of course the rally finals as well.
Yeah, great way to finish. I mean, it would be finishing pretty much like today with the rallying and their last stages as well. So it was great just to have that ability to have them here on the circuit, not out in the countryside, the local countryside, but to have them here, enable the fans to get up close and tight with those cars, and for us who have been based at the circuit all day, just to be able to see those cars.
Yeah, so that's everything we've got for you tomorrow, but let's take a look at all the action and all the highlights of what's happened here today. We'll see you then tomorrow.
he started behind. As I say, quite a big machine. Look at the roll on